Hello and welcome to the Pre-Chiro podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Ben Glass, and today we're making a pro-Chiro connection with a recent graduate out of Parker, Dr. Stratton Polson. Can you kind of just introduce yourself and share a little bit about what your background was before you went to chiropractic school and what attracted you to become a chiropractor?
Yeah, of course. Just first of all, thank you. I appreciate you having me, and I'm happy to come on and talk to everybody. Again, I'm Dr. Stratton Polson. I am the owner of Apex Chiropractic. It's a small micro chiropractic cash practice. So I don't have any staff or anything like that, just me. And I also have a seminar company where I teach spinal manipulation and soft tissue techniques. Um, Before chiropractic school, I was a massage therapist. I've been a massage therapist for about 12, 13 years at this point. I started when I was like 17 and then graduated, got my license right around my 18th birthday and did that ever since. What got me into chiropractic, because I've actually been a martial artist for the majority of my life. I started with like karate and taekwondo when I was like 3 years old. In my late teens, I started teaching karate to some of the kids' classes at my academy. But over the years, I'd had a lot of like injuries and things. That's what eventually led me to massage. And I'd seen, some people get better with chiropractic care in my practice that I had been working on for a long time. So I'd, been working with people for months or weeks and not able to fully resolve their issue. They keep coming back with the same thing. And then they'd say, show up one day and all of a sudden they were just fixed. I was like, okay, well, what's the secret? What'd you do? And they're like, oh, I went to go see the chiropractor. But I was like super skeptical of chiropractic. I'd heard everything that you hear. Chiropractors are witch doctors. They're not real doctors. They'll kill you, right, if you let them adjust your neck. All the classics, the greatest hits, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just was not sure if that was something that was even legit, much less that I wanted to do. But I got thrown in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu practice one day and basically threw a rib out, like super, super bad. And I'd been suffering with it for weeks at that point, and I was supposed to be competing with our team at the end of the month in a Jiu-Jitsu tournament. And I've been sitting out in practice, and the guys are like, "Hey, man, we know that you're injured. Like, we're tired of seeing you sit here. Why don't you go to the chiropractor?" I was like, "No, I'm not letting one of those crazy guys touch me." So finally, after about 2.5 weeks of just suffering with that, I finally ended up going to the chiropractor. I just went to the joint and went in, and the doc, felt my back. He was like, "Oh, you've thrown a rib out really bad," adjusted me, and which really hurt, by the way. The adjustment was like very forceful. But I was like 80% better, like immediately. Like I got up, night and day difference. Could breathe again without pain, could move my arm above my head without pain. So that started it for me. I'm still a pretty stubborn guy, so I was like, okay, well maybe chiropractic works, but only for ribs.
Mm-hmm.
Later, I injured my neck, then I injured my low back, and every time now that I'd had experience with the chiropractor, I would just go back, be like, hey, treat to my neck, hey, treat to my back. And over time, that chiropractor basically being able to fix me up every time I got hurt, I was like, hey, maybe this would be a great next step for my career because it seems to be something that I'm missing in being able to do for my clients as a massage therapist. And it's helped me a ton. So maybe chiropractors aren't all witch doctors. Maybe they aren't going to kill you. And that's
Mm-hmm.
what kind of brought me to chiropractic. I didn't do any research on schools. I wish that I had found out about like pre-chiro or anything like this beforehand because I basically Googled chiropractic school, saw that Parker was like 10 miles from my house, and I was like, oh, okay, well, I'll go to Parker. So I finished my undergrad and then started there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you're touching on one of the audiences that I think is super valuable for us to key our efforts in on as far as attracting people to chiropractic, which is martial artists who are maybe doing massage or any type of wellness professional, whether they're personal trainers, they're into nutrition, they're health coaches, they're life coaches, they're doing anything where they're helping other people live better lives. And I think that you being primed to be a great sort of next step, like that concept of the next step that you just shared, I think that is really uh, a common path that could take place in society if chiropractic had more presence, more awareness. So, what do you think is needed to really step out in front of massage therapists, people that are wellness professionals, if you look back on where you were at and what would have maybe been something, was it the timing of you looking to make a next step, or was it that chiropractic actually showed you that, hey, this is the logical next step, or was it that experience on the table that was like, okay, I need to go do this for other people? What was it of the three?
Yeah, so, I think when I became a massage therapist, I was 18. And at the time that I was starting to consider next steps, I was like 24, 25, somewhere in there. And I wasn't really taking the massage business super seriously. It was more of a job. I was not putting a lot of time into like learning marketing, learning to run my small business well. I had a small business, but it was, always making enough to get by, a little extra so that we weren't eating ramen noodles. It was never like, providing. So I had in my mind I wanted to do a next step, and a lot of massage therapists I think do this. Massage therapists very often go get like National Academy of Sports Medicine, like corrective exercise or personal training certificates, or you see personal trainers move over into the massage space. So there's a lot of overlap there. Um, and that helped me have some more skills for my clients, but it wasn't really scratching that itch, right? It wasn't really doing what I think I needed, which is like a way to help people so much more and a way to be very effective in perhaps less time, and to get paid well for doing it. So chiropractic kind of started to fill that for me once I became aware of it. I think, like you said, what's necessary for that to happen is for people to know a chiropractor. I mean, all those concepts I had in my head were just from the internet and just general hearsay. And chiropractic, has a fantastic reputation on the internet, as you know. So I think, if I had have known a chiropractor, if a chiropractor had have worked with me while I was a massage therapist, I happen to work in spa settings and then gym settings, never in a chiropractic setting. So I think if I had have known a chiropractor, if I had had experience with chiropractic care sooner or found out that they're not, wackos, sooner, that would have been on my radar as a next step. And I think, there are not a whole lot of chiropractors compared to like your family neighborhood MD, right? Or your family neighborhood dentist. So I think if we did a better job of getting out and working with allied professionals, that would help bring more massage therapists, more personal trainers into chiropractic and create awareness there in a positive way. Um, a lot of times
By the
massage
way,
therapists.
Brooks Hill is throwing her hands up, saying what's up. She's present on the podcast right now as a viewer, but obviously you're familiar with her. You mentioned that you saw her interview the other day, and she's doing a lot to bring a presence of pre chiropractic to the internet. Can you kind of just reflect on maybe the dynamic of your relationship with her? Obviously, she's a student. You're a doc now, but you knew her maybe when you were a student, and also just seeing the type of work that she's doing to create a culture and a community for pre chiropractic students.
Oh yeah. So first of all, hey Brooks, how's it going? She's awesome. She's killing it over at Parker. I think she's in try 5 or 6 right now. Last time we talked, we actually just met for the first time. I was teaching at Soft Tissue Club at campus last week, and we had met briefly at Parker seminars in February, where she was doing a lot of help hosting the seminars and putting on different classes. I was over at Greg Friedman's documentation class, learning about everything I'm doing wrong. um, and we've met there, and then we met at the club. So she's doing awesome. I've kind of seen her from afar as she's helped Parker up their social media presence, and as she's helping to kind of reach out to chiropractic students and really provide a voice and an example that I think is missing. A lot of times, if you are a potential chiropractic student or you're an early chiropractic student and you want to know what that student experience is going to be like, you just don't have any content to consume. You can get on YouTube and you can type in, day in the life of a pre-med student, and you could watch hours and hours and hours of video to find out exactly what it's going to be like. And with chiropractic, I do remember looking up some of those videos when I was first starting, and there's just nothing. Or if there is, they were filmed in 720p in the in the late 90s, right? So
Mm-hmm.
Brooks is killing it. Shout out to you, Brooks, for everything that you're doing for students and bringing awareness. And I heard about how they had that chiropractic program at your college, which is awesome. I've never even heard of like a chiropractic club at a big university. So that's awesome in terms of starting awareness among like kinesiology students and pre-med students and stuff like that. But there's another path out there.
Mm-hmm. And if we could, yeah, bring it back to centering our voice now on that club that she was a part of at that college. If you were having a conversation with them now, you've got a little group of students, and you're trying to basically help build more context as to how you being a massage therapist and practicing martial arts your whole life. and taking that next step to chiropractic actually was the right step for you? Can you kind of just reflect now on when you got into chiropractic school? Well, I would like you to key in on some of the surprises or frustrations or challenges you encountered early on, but also just talking about like you realizing that it was the right decision. Where were you at, or when in the program were you at when you realized that this was the good choice?
Yeah, it's when I realized that, okay, we've done the right thing here. It was probably around like try three or four. It was as we're getting to the close of our first kind of term of adjusting practice and learning to actually do our adjustments. And as I started to get more familiar with them and get better at them, because then I realized how much the repetition of just moving your body quickly from martial arts and the palpation skills and the awareness of being tuned into your patient's body helped. You know, in the beginning, when I first got to school, I thought, oh, maybe this isn't going to work out for me because I remember being in our palpation class. I'm trying to feel a TVP, I'm trying to feel a spinous process, I'm trying to feel joint motion. And my brain is so used to feeling for muscles that I'm touching someone's neck and all I can feel is the scalenes, all I can feel is the paraspinals. And I thought, oh my God, maybe this is just not going to work out for me. Maybe I am not cut out for this. I'm not going to be able to feel what's going on. But slowly you start to shift your brain over from muscles and soft tissues over into feeling the joint motion, feeling the bony landmarks. That starts to click as you start to get a little bit more experience with the way the joints move and what makes an adjustment successful versus unsuccessful. Then you can really start to kind of, I think, go into where you shine as a massage therapist or someone who has hands-on body experience is you know how to communicate with your hands with another person's body and their system. You know how to put them at ease. You know how to feel when they tense up just slightly because they're uncomfortable or if they're hesitant about something that you're going to do. And that to me is the most important thing. That's one of the things I teach in my seminars or when I'm helping students is it's more important for the patient to be comfortable at all times and relaxed than it is to go in there and blow up a joint. And you'll have better results that way. Your patients will thank you for it because your adjustments will be more comfortable. And so
Hmm.
that's really, I think, try three, try four. That all started coming together for me. How much easier it was for me to learn the adjustments, how much each new adjustment was easier to learn. That made all the difference for me. And so I think that's really where I was like, oh yeah, it's all coming together now. But I was really worried in the beginning that this was just a horrible mistake. So
Hmm. Yeah, and I'm really happy to hear that in your adjusting seminars, you're teaching the listening and centering the focus on is the patient at ease, is the person on your table in a place where they're comfortable before they receive a force. And I think that that is a real missing component to our education from day one. I think that should be the focus. Like they say, do no harm. In massage and in chiropractic school, but that's kind of vague and not really specific as to like how do you do no harm and how can you strategically make sure that you're not delivering a force into one of your fellow students' necks without them being fully relaxed and comfortable, because as you know, a lot of people get injured in chiropractic school, and I believe that if we create a culture early on where people are listening more and keeping their hands relaxed. Shout out one more time to Brooks the other day. She talked about how she trains to have her hands relaxed, and I think that makes a big difference on people. When you get into chiropractic school, if you have no background in soft tissue and hands on, I did also, I was also a massage therapist, then you also have really stiff hands, which I felt on me, and it made it difficult for me to want to practice with a lot of my fellow classmates because you're just trying to get through your days of class, let alone having to practice with fellow students that you're concerned might, make your day more difficult if you're not feeling great after they put their hands on you. Can you talk more about like which directions you gravitated towards in your training to become a chiropractor? Which specific seminars you took, or which specific texts you really became immersed and focused in?
yeah. So just to comment on your other thing, I think you're exactly right. There's a big difference between doing no harm in terms of not being reckless or violent, and then actually being someone who is able to put someone at ease and really create a safe space to practice. And it's hard when you're a student because you're so anxious and nervous, and you're just trying to get the skill down. But it's important to really focus on that. And one of the things I'll tell students, and I do in practice still, is if I feel myself shaking or I'm just kind of not in the right space, anything can wait. just a couple of seconds. Set the patient's head down, take a step away from the table, take a deep breath, get yourself fixed to where you're not anxious, nervous, tense, and come back and do what you were going to do. So, to touch on that. But yeah, it's in school, I tried just really hard to do something which I think is a great tip for chiro students is like you're going to be assigned a lot of texts for your classes, and most people don't actually read those books. Now, whether it's science, whether it's technique, whatever it is, a lot of times you're skimming whatever chapter you need to skim to make it through the next quiz, to make it through the next test. If you sit and read cover to cover a lot of these texts, you'll get a ton of context and golden information about different techniques and about even your scientific classes as well. For me, going through the program, a big influence for me was our local Adjust Club. And there's a doc here, Dr. David Bynum. He teaches, I think it's called Hand Alchemy seminars. I went to a couple of those. That was a big influence for me. He's awesome. He's always kind of reaching out to students and helping them just for free out of the kindness of his heart. So he does a really awesome job. And he, I think, founded Adjust Club. I might be wrong on that, but so Adjust Club on campus was huge for me. I went every time we had club, every time we had open Adjust. I was practicing as often as possible. Eventually got into leadership and started to get back to that club and teach what I had learned. Some other really notable seminars, Dr. Lauren Kodak, I think she's from New Zealand. I really don't want to get any of this information wrong. She does NICAO seminars, which is primarily geared towards female chiropractors and developing power. She came to a Parker Adjustathon or one of our big campus events, and she opened up a few spots for men to attend her seminar when she was there, and I thankfully was able to get in there. And that was huge for helping to develop my confidence and my power with side posture. Because if you can adjust like a female, a tiny female, and you're a male, well, you're just going to have even that much more power because the technique really brings home everything that you need to do in the lumbar spine. Centropy chiropractic seminars was amazing. The occipital lift, the supine occipital lift, I think it's Dr. Crane originated that, but they teach it. And that is one of the most powerful adjustments I've ever received, one of the most powerful life-changing adjustments I've ever learned to give. I would probably classify that as my most impactful, most important seminar. Oh, I don't want to miss anything. Dr. Brett Winchester was incredibly influential for me, especially with the Motion Palpation Institute. I've shifted a lot away from how they kind of motion palpate and assess specifically like from seated position and stuff like that, but their adjustments and their skills are awesome. And Dr. Brett Winchester really influenced a lot of my early side posture game. Who else? I feel so bad because I'm
So
leaving things
instead
out.
of continuing, because you've done an exhaustive list, can
Yeah.
you talk about having been through all those experiences, if you were giving a recommendation to a student who hadn't yet gone to these seminars? Obviously, it's going to be a little different for each seminar depending on like what the intention behind the seminar is, but how can we create this construct so that students are entering into seminars for specific reasons with clear intentions and they're almost like coming to key in on specific aspects of themselves that they know they need to work more on or that they know they need to strengthen so that we have more of an organized approach to becoming a chiropractor where it's like, I'm going to go to this seminar because I need to really work on this aspect of my approach, or you know what I mean? Like, I'm
Yeah.
just curious
Yeah.
what your perspective is on that.
Yeah. I
Or
think if
maybe like
they're,
what you want to contextualize for the students coming to study with you.
yeah. I think if we presented a little bit more of a unified front, that it would be easier, right? If the seminars external to school were a little bit more integrated with school, things would be more cohesive and you could step in at different stages of learning. Obviously, all the seminar companies are run by different docs with different philosophies and things like that. So there's only so much kind of congruency that you can have. But I would really encourage students to step out of their comfort zone. So if you are like really safe and comfortable with motion palpation and you love that club, you go all the time, I would encourage you to branch out into something like a Kairos or a MLS or some of the more tonal seminars and just get that experience. You may go out to some of those and decide, hey, I was right, totally not for me. I don't dig it. But then at least you've had the experience and you've had exposure to it in those different thought processes. Because I think a lot of it goes together very well. If you understand very finely the mechanisms of the way that the joints move, but you also are tuned into what's going on with that person on your table as a human being and what's going on with their soul, with their emotions, with their level of stress, anxiety, the way they're interacting in the world. When you can marry those two concepts and be aware of it, then I think you are very in tune with your patients and you also develop a ton of practical skill. That's something that I try and do in my seminars is really marry up paying attention to the patient as a person, as a human, and then the physical, repeatable, psychomotor skill of the adjustment. I think if you can get those both right, you'll do much better. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and when you're listening through your hands, it becomes much easier to palpate and adjust, um, as opposed to just picking up a neck and trying to exert your will onto a patient. So I would
Yeah.
encourage students to get a nice broad exposure to a lot of different techniques. You're not going to love everything. There's a ton of things in chiropractic that I either just don't get it or just don't like it, doesn't resonate with me.
Mm-hmm.
But that's one of the beautiful things about the profession is you can carve your own way based on what does resonate with you and what you feel to be true to you as you want to be a doctor.
Mm-hmm. I like that advice. I'm right with you. Listening hands. I love it. Um, as far as just you transitioning into practice now, you're only like less than a year out of school. Um, what are some ways that this transition could be improved and then also maybe reflect on how it's been for you?
Yeah. Well, one of the ways that it can be improved is just, I think, the the truth of the experience for most chiropractors is that you're going to have to be an entrepreneur. I was actually looking through one of your things on your page that said like you have to be a scientist, you have to be a thinker, you have to be a teacher, you have to be an entrepreneur. There's one more in there. But that's so true. And I think that there's only so much you can get in school in terms of business because business and entrepreneurship is constantly changing. But I think if we had more of it, that would be really important because the school system is kind of set up to in the same way that it is for medical doctors or dentists. You learn the skill, and the assumption is that that skill is now going to be enough for you to go be successful, right? And for the majority of chiropractors, you are either going to go out and be an associate and get a job, and that probably doesn't come with the financial reward that you had hoped that it would with the title doctor. Or you're going to be an entrepreneur. You're going to go out, start your own practice, or do something for yourself. And there's that whole basket that comes along with that because no one ever taught you how to set up an LLC. No one ever taught you how to make sure your Google My Business page is up to date. No one ever taught you how to do website SEO, how to make sure that you're listed on the right local boards. And no one certainly ever taught you how to do social media marketing, which has been the hugest thing for my practice. And so, how could we improve it? If we had more practical education in the schools about starting a business and we were honest with ourselves that the majority of chiropractors who are going to make what they want to be making are entrepreneurs that have gone into practice and started their own practices. So as soon as we become honest about that in the schools and we start implementing curriculum that's aimed at that, I think we'll do a much better job for our students because it's just not right that students are being promised six-figure salaries when the reality of that is unlikely without a couple years experience of learning how to start a business. Um, and then reflecting on how it's been for me, it's been awesome. I always joke it's probably better than I could have asked for the first 8 months of practice. We're doing amazing. A lot of that comes from social media marketing. I get about 50 to 70 new patients a month from a combination of Instagram and TikTok. And that has been a huge game changer for my practice. I remember the first 3 months, those are rough, man, because you're sitting in an empty office and you're like, oh no, like, what have I made a horrible mistake here? You've got your overhead and everything, and there's nobody in there. I remember coming home and telling my wife, Loriana, I was like, oh, I may have made a horrible mistake for us. And but thankfully, I ended up really diving into a lot of business books, really diving into a lot of social media marketing books. Hired a consultant who taught me a social media strategy that really took off. So in November, I think it was like our third month open. I had like 14 new patients, and I was like, oh my God, we're barely keeping this thing afloat. And then in December, started implementing those strategies. We had 56 new patients, and I was like, okay, this is going to work. And it's been about 50 to 70 ever since. So practice is awesome. It's a lot of fun. Running a cash-based practice, it's a micro practice. I don't have any staff or anything. It's just me. You come in, treat your patients, do the best that you can, love on them, and go home at the end of the day. And
Mm-hmm.
so that's just been phenomenal. I can't recommend starting a very small practice highly enough. because it's much easier to become profitable and then um, well into the profitability to where you're really making a good net take home
Mm-hmm.
relatively quickly in a small practice. But if you
Mm-hmm.
open more practice than you could manage, then you're in for a fight.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Can you share some stories of just like, yeah, just break down kind of what you've been able to witness or experience as a chiropractor in your first year of practice, like how fruitful it already has become as far as helping other people, as far as connecting within your community, and just the feeling that you have when you wake up every morning and go through your day.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's one of those things. I've never really had a job in my life where I woke up in the morning and even if I was tired, I was stoked to go to work. Like I get up, I'm ready to check my messages and see if any patients have asked me any questions. I'm ready to check and see if anyone else has booked. When I'm in the shower, I'm thinking about getting ready to go to the office, and I really love being at the office. And it's one of those things where, um, you realize how blessed you are to be in this profession when you see how much you help people. I mean, I had a woman come in, she could barely walk. She's like in a walker, and her husband was bringing her in. And after the first adjustment, she's like upright. She's not using the walker anymore. And we kept bringing her in. She's pain free. Then she brings in her daughter, and the husband starts getting adjusted. And then the husband's brother had fallen off of a rig at work, and he comes in all hobbled over. And you get to watch how you change one person's life, and then how you get to have this ripple effect through the whole family. Um, and it's night and day. When they came in, they're worried. The husband's worried. She's not sure if she's ever going to get better. She's tried other things. It didn't work. And now when they come in, they're smiling. They're happy to be there. They're happy to see me. They bring the whole family. I get to treat their younger daughters. I mean, it really is just a pleasure. And then you have people who come in who they don't have a lot of pain, but they just feel so much better when they get adjusted. And you might call those patients that get it, right? They get chiropractic. But it's just great. I mean, for the most part, you're in an office full of people who are happy to see you. They are just totally stoked to be there. You're making a good living, and I think doing really good work for the community, and it's aligned with what I want to do and the vision I see for my life. And so I can't really imagine much of a better job. I certainly wouldn't want to sit in a cubicle and deal with numbers or anything like that. So it's an
Mm-hmm.
incredibly rewarding career, but it is work. It is work. I think some people think that, oh, you're gonna just be helping people when it's all that side. There's a lot of work that goes into it. You're gonna be ordering X-rays. You're gonna be doing documentation, charting, making sure the business aspects are involved. And so there is that element of work that comes to it. But to me, it's incredibly worth it. It's really a ton of fun to go to the office every day. So
Mm-hmm. I appreciate you going into depth. You threw a shiny object out there, and it's kind of one of the things that I see a lot in chiropractic of like, oh, I get 50 to 70 new patients a month. And like, can you kind of talk about what's behind that and the amount of work you had to do to really even get to that? Because that is on the higher end of what people can ever accomplish as far as expecting 50 to 70 new people to come into their office. It's not typical. Just let's be clear, right? Like you threw that out there kind of uh, uh, in the mix of your answer, and I just want you to unpack that. Like, what are the
yeah,
social media strategies you learned? What is the work ethic that you need to accomplish something like that, right?
yeah. So to frame it up kind of appropriately, I work in my practice Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and Sunday for about 26 to 28 hours a week. But that doesn't mean that Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday I'm off. So Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday I'm either shooting video content or I'm recording, adjusting videos, which to answer your question, the majority of what I've done, and this is a little bit controversial in the chiropractic world, is what works for me is to shoot videos of me adjusting my patients so that people who might want to be a patient can see social proof, and they can imagine themselves on my table receiving that care and getting that relief. And then once you have those videos done, you're then boosting them out as ads. And you're targeting that within the local area around your office so that the people who are seeing and engaging with that content are people who live close enough that they may be a good fit to become a patient. That's kind of the meat and potatoes of the strategy. The other thing that a lot of marketing companies or social media agencies won't do for you is they're going to send the ads out, right? This is kind of how ads work. You send them out and then you what? You wait for the phone to ring, right? You wait for someone to DM you. So I had actually end up sending those ads out, and then I'm following up on the engagement on those posts, the likes and follows and stuff, with an outbound campaign where I'm DMing people saying, "Hey, this is Dr. Poulson. I noticed that you liked one of our videos. Have you ever been to a chiropractor before?" Just trying to start conversations that eventually lead a patient down the road to booking and becoming a patient. And I've seen a huge increase from when you're doing passive advertising, where you're just waiting for the phone to ring, to where you're reaching out and inviting people into your office, inviting people to get to know you. You're starting a conversation with them. That's responsible for the jump. Now, what comes along with that is that's a lot of work. You get up every day, you might have 10, 15, 20 DM conversations going on with patients. When you work in a small practice like mine, automating as many things as possible becomes key. My online booking, it's all online. The intake paperwork is all online. If we start going back and forth into a lot of conversation about dates or times or something like that, we just send the online booking link. But starting those conversations, what's going on with you? Oh, I fell off my bike. I've never been the same since. And getting a sense for what's going on with that person, where they're at in their life, and then inviting them into your practice has made all the difference for me. Um, that first month, I got a little bit lucky because one of the patients that I filmed happened to be like a social media fitness influencer. So she had like 25, 30,000 local followers in Dallas. So when I posted that video, I sent her the video as well, a Dropbox link, and she posted it on her feed. And I had 30 new patients in about a week and a half. I mean, that was a crazy time for the practice. And then it slowly built to where I was getting 20 new patients from Instagram, 30 new patients from Instagram, 40 to where then it leveled out 50 to 70. I think the biggest month was January. I had like 80 something new patients. Probably a majority of them were from Instagram. And I know it's a lot of new patients. Some of the other things that go into that is I run new patient specials, so I have discounted first visits. That's very controversial in the chiropractic space too. I believe that my product is good. My adjustment is phenomenal, and I want as many people to experience that as possible. So I'm considerate breaking down the wall in front of my front door. If your first visit's $200, right? You're building a wall in front of your front door. If you don't have online booking, you're building a wall in front of your front door. If it's not easy to tell where you're located, you're building a wall. And then you're asking patients to climb that to come in your front door to come see you. So why would you want to do that, right? We want to help as many people as possible. We want to get paid for doing it, but we want to help as many people as possible. And in chiropractic, you don't make your money on the consult. You make your money on the treatment and that relationship that you build lifelong with that patient. So for me, it's a no-brainer. I break down that wall in front of my office. It's very easy to book. You don't even need to talk to anyone. If you're afraid to pick up the phone, you don't have to call anyone. The first visit price is very affordable. You can come in, try the experience out, know that it's right for you, have an undeniable experience in my office, and then we can talk about what your care is going to look like going forward and build a plan. So I think the combination of that is what has made it so successful for me, is providing an undeniably good service, breaking down barriers to people becoming a patient of yours, and then having some type of campaign where you're getting awareness.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think the old way to do that used to be screenings and talks and things like that, and you undeniably build really good relationships at those, and that may create a lot of referrals because that relationship is strong. Um, but I've been running an ad for about 6 months that has 100,000 views within 5 miles of my office. How many spinal screenings do I have to do before 100,000 people near my office know that I exist? Right? That's a lot of screenings. So, but the benefit is these ads could be running while I'm doing a screening. So adding it to the strategy that you're already using to promote your practice is huge. I don't know how much you want to get into this because this is primarily for pre-chiropractic students, but
No, I
these are
mean,
some
it's
things you
very
can think about.
valuable because if we are able to equip the student as early in the path as possible with strategies like this, then all of a sudden you get engagement from different fresh places, right? Like imagine a pre-Chiro club was given what's the ad budget that you're running? Is it like $1,000? Is it $5,000? How much are you spending to reach 100,000 people within 5 miles of you with
Yeah.
this video per month or per week or per click?
So when I started, I would basically do about $300 a month. That started to build traction. So I said, okay, well, let's double it. Let's run another ad the same, and did $600 a month. So I was like, all right, this is working even better. Let's do it again to go $900 a month. So right now I do between $900 and $1,200 a month in advertising budget, and that results in a very consistent, 50 to 70 new patients a month. I was doing 50 new patients a month on about $400 ad spend when I first started. Um, and so that's kind of the range. So the benefit to this is $300 a month is not that much when you're first starting a practice, and you can really get the ball rolling for yourself. And that's if you're going to do screenings, if you're going to do talks, if you're going to do other things, let that ad run in the background while you're doing all that. I was getting new patients DMing me while I was asleep. I mean, you couldn't ask for better than to wake up and have patients like, "Hey, I want to come in." You're like, "Great, let's get you on the schedule." So
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
those things are very important. And then being cognizant of your social media presence. So it's something that I love that Brooks has done is Brooks has been on social since she was getting ready to come into Parker through the whole process of like the acceptance and the early tries. And there's a few other students at Parker now I see doing similar things. So you've kind of influenced some more people there, Brooks, to kind of follow in your footsteps. But the more of those students that are sharing their experience on social media as a student, the more it's going to help students that maybe want to get into chiropractic. But they also don't realize how much it's helping them, or maybe they do, to build their social presence, their comfortability talking to camera, and doing that over time as a student. First, you go from sharing your student experience. Then, as you start to get a little more clinical experience, maybe you start sharing some clinical information. I was giving what I call car talks when I was in the clinic. So, I would have a student patient, or when I was in the student clinic, I'd have a patient ask me something like, "Does foam rolling actually work?" All right. Well, I'd go out on my lunch break, sit in my car, prop my phone up, and give a car talk. "Hey guys, had a question today about foam rolling. Does it actually work? Let's talk about it," right? And so those got me really familiar with giving talks about conditions or about certain topics. And it started to build my following so that when I graduated, I did have a little bit of an audience on my personal page and my business page. And I had content that I could put onto those pages. And I had a lot of familiarity with creating content. So day one, opening the practice wasn't the first video I'd ever filmed. And
Mm-hmm.
that's huge because you've got to get the horrible videos out of the way. I don't know if you've probably filmed some horrible videos. I know I sure have. I have some uh, early massage information videos that I shot that are in like 720p. It look like they're filmed in a dungeon where I'm trying to show people how to stretch, right?
Mm-hmm.
You got to get that bad content out of the way so you can learn how to make good content that is going to convert well for you and result uh, in you being able to make a good living once you graduate.
Mm-hmm. So let's look forward now. What are you looking forward to? What has your vision blossomed into? What is the impact that you hope to have on this world, on this profession, on the students? Where how is that crystallizing for you?
Yeah, I mean, Uh, I love working in my practice. I think it would be a good idea sometime soon to start bringing on an associate here or two to make sure that we can really serve all the people that we're attracting into the practice. Um, I view my office kind of being one of those places where you get that married up, um, incredibly effective understanding of biomechanics and a really great mechanical adjustment, but also very comfortable, very kind of encompassing of who you are as a person. And if I can blend those two things together, that's what I want my office to be. That's the light I want it to be for chiropractic in the community. And then along with that, in my seminar company, I really want to help solve problems that I saw or that I had when I was a student. One of them, and one of the reasons why I sell video seminars. So the videos from my seminars you can buy. And one of the problems that I'm solving with that is that when I was a student, I remember being frustrated. All I wanted was to learn like a particular adjustment, and I would go to a seminar, not really get it, and then leave, and you're like, oh, like I paid all that money. I went and spent the weekend learning this. I only wanted one thing out of it. I didn't really get it. Maybe I learned another adjustment, and that's great, but the frustration, especially when you don't have very much money, when it's a decision between a seminar and eating ramen noodles, and you're like, okay, well, I guess we're gonna eat ramen noodles so I can go to the seminar, especially if you have to fly somewhere. So I wanted to solve that problem for students. So, when you come to one of my seminars, you get the video access, the video of that seminar for free. It's included with the price of the seminar. And the reason is because you paid, in my mind, you paid to learn these adjustments. And your learning doesn't have to take place within a 4-hour window on a Saturday, right? You can go back and view that adjustment as many times as it takes you to learn it because I want students to learn it more than I want, repetitive seminar income. And so when I started doing that, I thought, oh, I could solve another problem because I remember not being able to go to some of the really cool seminars in like California and in Florida because I just couldn't afford to one, like leave school, couldn't afford to fly over there. Where am I going to stay? Now, maybe I wasn't resourceful enough. You could probably couch surf, but so if you can't come to Dallas to take one of my seminars that I'm having here in person, well, you can buy the seminar. Oh, lost my light there.
Hmm.
You can buy video access to the seminar so that you can see those same adjustments. You can learn those same adjustments, even if you can't physically travel here.
Hmm.
Um, and so for me, that's my vision is a future where chiropractic learning and creating incredible adjusters is not gate kept by like very expensive seminars, having to go in person, your geographic location. And so I think if more seminar companies can do something like this, where we're really putting the student first, that we will have much better results. And so that's one of my big like passions, what has me fired up right now at the moment
Hmm.
is I view that as the most important thing because the world needs more incredible chiropractors. Just full stop. The world needs more incredible chiropractors. And if I can have a part in turning more of those out, then that's huge for me.
Hmm. Hmm. Awesome. Love it. Yeah, no, I'm right there with you. And I like how you talk about solving problems because, right, you have to ask the questions and be able to think outside the box, right? For decades, chiropractors have taught the same seminars over and over and over and over and over again and said, we invite you to come back because each time you'll learn something new and each time you'll deepen your understanding and deepen your practice. And this is all 100% true. But what about in between the seminars? And it just is not. It's not realistic to expect students to be able to integrate the information without having the teacher right there with them every step of the way, just at that early stage or in the middle stage of the program, especially if you don't have any background experience like you or I. And yeah, no, I'm right there with you. When I was a student, I tried to build a network of students from all different schools to connect to the same amount of resources because I felt as though certain schools provided a deficient amount of resources for their students. Um, but yeah, I love the on-demand, consistent. You're right there with the student, and yeah, man, asking new questions. That's really what it boils down to me. What are some questions that you might have? I'm just curious, just because you do like to think differently. That's very clear to me. What are some questions you have about maybe pre-Cairo or about strategy of how to really expose people through pre-Cairo the most effective and efficient way?
Yeah. I think, some of the big questions for me is just like what have you found has been the most successful or the most resonant type of content with people who are looking into chiropractic? And kind of in addition to that, so what resonates the most with them is what have you found is the best way to reach out to them? I know that you're doing podcasts and you've got your social media presence and everything going, but what have you found to be the most fruitful avenue that you've taken in helping bring people to the profession?
Hmm. Truthfully, because I've always felt as though this was my mission, I've just done it in person. I've just connected with, like, for example, I was at the beach this past Sunday. I was telling a 10-year-old and a 12-year-old about chiropractic because of just them building sandcastles and me asking them about what types of activities they do, and they're swimmers and soccer players, and I'm like, oh, and then just planting the seeds. But to be honest with you, there hasn't been more than like 5 or 10 students that have hit me up on DM and said, this is a gold mine for me. Thank you so much. I'm watching all the videos. I'm learning so much. This is helping me prepare to really go and give me context. So to be fair, I haven't really gotten a ton of feedback. I haven't really connected on the level that I plan to connect to. And I've been wanting to do this project or working on this project for over 10 years. Started when I transferred schools and realized how big of a gap I had in my knowledge and understanding entering into school. So Collaboration is obviously going to be key moving forward, which is why I'm really identifying the people that are engaged professionally, and then the students that are engaged, and then even the pre-Chiro students that are engaged, and just inviting them to have a conversation. And these conversations have been really substantive and fill in like all of the information that I believe is out there that nobody is has pieced together and created like an ecosystem of information that's well organized and really clearly laid out so that people can navigate their options and their opportunities and become aware of people like you from day one, or become aware of certain associations, state associations and their efforts, or certain international or national organizations and their efforts, or really have the animal chiropractic pathway laid out very clearly and specifically. So I'm just doing the work right now to build a better profession that I would like to see, more organized, more structured, more connected to one another. And that's kind of that's kind of the answer that I have for you, to be honest. I
Yeah.
don't know if it really touches on what you're asking me.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. I see you building and everything. One of the posts that I saw on your Instagram feed right before I got on this was the one where it showed, pre-Chiro or pre-chiropractic and all those hashtags and how many posts. And we're talking about like hundreds, sometimes 10. I think one of them had like 4 posts under the hashtag. And then you swipe to the right and it's like pre-medical, pre-med student, and all those have, sometimes hundreds of thousands of mentions of that tag. And so you can see there's a very clear difference. Now, there's a lot more MDs in the United States than there are chiropractors, but there's a very big difference in what those professions are doing, what those schools are doing to help foster the next generations. And I think that if anything that we can do to help and bring docs minds back to the student experience, back to what it was like to be pre-chiro or a chiropractic student, and how can we help give back? How can we make our practices a little bit more open and transparent, maybe helping people come shadow us more often? Um, you know, that's huge. And then also helping some of the chiropractic students realize that, if you're in the middle of your program, you are at the top of the mountain compared to someone who's finishing undergrad. There's a lot that you have, even though you may not feel like, I know when I was in Tri 5, I didn't feel like I had a lot of valuable knowledge outside massage. Right? I was like, I don't know anything about anything. But you actually have a ton of knowledge that you can give to people who are finishing their undergrad or considering chiropractic, and a lot of valuable content that you could create and provide. And I think that that's huge, is creating that, chiropractic ecosystem where we're all looking to help bring up the next generation, because it shouldn't be so, lonely to choose chiropractic, right? I feel like if you're like, oh, I'm going to go to medical school, your friends, your family, you have all these people that are like, oh my God, I'm rooting for you. What schools have you applied for? What are you getting ready for? Even if you're like, I'm going to go to physical therapy school, you have all these resources, all these people to talk to, podcasts to listen to, everything. Like, I'm going to go to chiropractic school. And it's kind of like crickets, crickets. So the more
Hmm.
that we can do to help fill in and cheer pre-chiropractic students on and chiropractic students on, the better, I think. And I think you're doing an awesome job with your platform. Some of the things that are like a great opportunity that I see in my analysis of the space is things like Brooks is doing. There's DJ Reyes at Parker University. He's doing some day in the life type stuff. And I see different students doing day in my life. Here's study tips. Here's what it's like to go to the gym at lunch, right? That type of content is great because it helps share the student experience and helps it be a little bit more relatable. And the more stuff like that that students are doing, that docs like us are doing, I think the better. And that's a big opportunity I see, is that encouraging students to share their experiences, just like you're doing by inviting them onto the podcast, is huge.
Absolutely. Well, that's, yeah, I mean, that's like, that's it right there, there's not much more to talk. I mean, there's a lot more to talk about as far as strategy and how do we leverage this new population who's now primed for chiropractic, and what could they do in the name of chiropractic? Because as you know, I imagine or maybe I'll refresh your memory, when you're finishing your undergrad experience, which most people that go to chiropractic school have a bachelor's degree or are close to that, you are asked to do an independent study capstone project. And I believe if we had more independent study capstone projects in the name of pre chiropractic, Or even as chiropractic students, if you were asked to do a capstone project, I mean, you were doing them without the structure. You were just creating the opportunity to do these car talks like you just talked about, or to show up and teach in a Just Club. But there needs to be more of a emphasis that, like, hey, that's the requirement, or that's like the standard that's expected of you, or that's asked of you if you follow this path. Because the more adversity these students go through, or these pre-Chiro students go through, the more they're going to be ready to do the types of things that you've done in your first year, which is you've experienced more success than some people who've been in practice for 20, 30 years have ever experienced. And that's a testament to, like, how much of a need there is for chiropractors in the world, how how much of a shortage there is. So
Yeah,
it's
100%. I
awesome.
think, you know, I say this a lot. I say this sometimes in my seminars, like no chiropractor deserves to spend $200,000 basically or more on their education to come out and settle for like a 50,000 a year, 60,000 a year job, right? It's just, to me, that's not acceptable as a profession. And so what we've got to do is we've got to start providing resources and providing opportunities for chiropractors to get the education that they need and their business skills and their personal skills, social media content creation. There's a lot that goes into it, right? So that when people come out, they can get these nice high paying jobs if they're going to be an associate because they bring a lot of value, or they can open a practice and bring home a very nice net take home. And so the more that we can change that outlook, the more attractive chiropractic becomes as a profession, which means that we attract more and more top talent into the profession. We really get a lot of great minds and great hearts into the profession because they know that it's not, I don't have to be a martyr for chiropractic. I don't have to put my family's well-being and our financial future aside for the ideal of serving my community. You can do both. You can serve your community, be very well provided for financially, and the more that we can make that future a reality for people coming into the profession, the better their profession is going to do. I really think it has never been a better time to be a chiropractor. Even with just things like chiropractic crack videos on TikTok and YouTube, I know some docs really like they hear that and they cringe and they're like, oh, it's so embarrassing. But it used to be that you'd say, have you ever been to a chiropractor before? And a patient would go, oh, no, what's a chiropractor? What does a chiropractor do? Right? Now it's, have you ever been to a chiropractor before? No, but I've seen the videos. It looks so cool, right? There's this whole different reaction now. And there's a much larger awareness in the general public that chiropractic exists, which means that our voice, in my opinion, has never been louder. When you look, like when I see a video on YouTube that has 1 million views, that's a chiropractic video. To me, it doesn't matter how cringe that video, well, maybe it matters how cringe, but to a certain extent, it doesn't matter how cringe I might think that video is. That means that 1 million more people in the United States know chiropractic exists. They know that it's an option instead of painkillers, opioids, surgeries, injections. And that's a connection. That's a connection for us that we can then capitalize and grow. And so to me, when I hear someone like a doc or a student or someone, and they're not sure about social media or they don't want to post adjusting videos, it's like, if you think the adjusting videos on the internet are bad, make good ones. Show the good side of chiropractic. Show what you think great chiropractic should look like and help us grow our voice, because every single one of us that is having this touch point with the community is growing the profession. Every video that you post that gets tens of thousands of views is growing the profession, and you're doing your part to make it a better environment for students that are going to come after you and to make it a better environment for docs that are already in practice. So I think personally, especially, post pandemic, everyone's thinking about their health and what they can do to help keep themselves healthy. Like, the world is primed right now for a big chiropractic expansion. And we need to take advantage of that by getting the message out there and building awareness. And I don't think there's ever been a better time to do it.